and then we need to be prepared and to be able to respond to our community's needs.
I love the phone number. I can't tell you how often listeners will call me and say, and they're often our older listeners, but all ages, and say, you know what? I don't like being online. I'm not online.
Exactly.
Just give me a phone number.
That's right.
So let's do that. So where can people call if they want more information, Eve, about what we're talking about?
Absolutely. People can call 431-294-1428, and they'll talk to a live person who can give them the options around the different sessions and can even support some people with transportation if they have some mobility challenges or cannot get to the session, but they really want to be at an in-live session. That support will be available too. If people prefer to book online, they can do so through www.wrha.mb.ca, and there will be a page there that they can book online as well.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Marcy.
That's Eve Omar. She's a community area director for the WRHA. Sessions happening Monday, Fort Rouge Leisure Centre, Tuesday, November 28th. So that's the next week, Bruce Oak Recovery Centre. I'm just going to repeat that phone number again and the website, wrha.mb.ca. The number, 431-294-1428.
Of a friend has left me heartbroken and sad. I won't break, I might bend, but I will see this through to the end. They're gonna pluck my feathers, a handful at a time. Here, a little there, till there are no more mountains to climb. Every precious moment on every stage we could find, the smell of piss and disappointment comes one song at a time. In the clubs and in the bars, no land in sight. Here we are plummeting to stardom, one show at a time. Night after night, precious moment on every stage we could find, the smell of piss and disappointment comes one song at a time. It's just one song at a time.
Skydiggers with their tribute to the late Dallas Good, one song at a time. And if you're a fan of the Skydiggers and you got some time off around the holiday season, they are playing Toronto December 22nd. It is 7:25 a.m. Speaking of playing, we're getting ready for the big game. Let's turn to morning sports. Scott Reguera is with us. Hi there.
Hey there, Marcy.
Oh, you know what, Scott? I just got a note from the highways. I apologize. I want to slide this in quick.
Sure.
Highways in southwest Manitoba, we've been talking about a snowfall warning there. They're slick right now. So in the Interlake, they could be snowpacked as well, hence the snowfall warning. So we're expecting about 5 to 10 centimeters of snow there today, and that's quite a change from what we've had the last couple mornings. So take it easy. Mm-hmm. And now to Bombers, or I guess to the Bomber Awards, the CFL Awards nights tonight, individual awards. Bombers running back Brady Oliveira is up for the biggest honor of them all this year.
Yeah, and a rare Canadian with an opportunity to take home that prize, the Most Outstanding Player Award. Brady's up against Argos quarterback Chad Kelly. Oliveira makes a pretty compelling case, Marcy. He did score 13 touchdowns, very much in the plural, while running for more yards by a Canadian than all but one player in CFL history. That's John Cornish, who plied his trade a decade ago with the Stampeders. Oliveira was asked what winning this award tonight would mean.
You look at the list of players that have reached it, there's not many. Pretty elite company to be with. I grew up watching John Cornish as well, so it's a dream. I feel like there's been lots of dreams for myself this season, so I'm extremely blessed. But at the end of the day, man, I want to win a Grey Cup. These individual stats, these awards, whatever it is, I mean, if we don't win, it's a waste.
So Oliveira, Marcy, can become just the 4th Canadian to win the Most Outstanding Player award, joining not just Cornish, but Russ Jackson and Tony Gabriel. Those are some pretty big names. As you heard, though, Brady has his eyes on the biggest prize that's helping his hometown Bombers beat Montreal in Sunday's Grey Cup. 8 degrees and sunny forecasted for kickoff. Not bad at all. And I should mention 2 other Bombers nominees for tonight's individual awards. Jamarcus Hardrick as top offensive lineman. He's up against Toronto's Dejon Allen. And then Mike O'Shea, of course, for Coach of the Year, pitted against Ryan Dinwiddie, again, of the Argos.
Lots of blue around town already, and also people getting ready to leave. I have a guest coming up after the news who's getting ready to board a bus. Or actually, I don't know if they're taking a bus, but they're going with a whole bunch of them down to Hamilton to check out the game.
It's going to be like a tropical vacation with that weather, right?
It sounds nice.
Kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
8 and sunshine.
Your tropical vacation and some football.
Let's go to day 1 of training camp in the books for the players in the Professional Women's Hockey League. What stood out for you?
Well, I think, Marcy, aside from the excitement of the players in the 6 cities the league will have teams in, the fact that there's still so much to do. With the season set to begin in January, we still don't have a schedule, which makes it pretty tricky to sell tickets. Then there's the matter of team names and logos. The PWHL says those might not be ready until the new year. So there is an uphill climb, although it's done little to dampen the spirits of Laura Stacey, who will suit up for the Montreal franchise.
I think we're all really excited for it. The fact that this day is actually here and it's not just something we've talked about, it's actually come to fruition is really something special. And no matter what the comments are about the jerseys, the logo, for us, we're here. We're playing in a professional league for the first time in our life, and I think that says it all.
It's Montreal's Laura Stacey. Interesting listening to the comments of Hayley Skamura, who will be a key player for the Ottawa franchise, Marcy. Looking around her newly built dressing room in the arena the NHL Senators also call home. Skamura said to reporters, "This is the first time in ages I've had a dedicated stall rather than having my gear hanging up on a hockey tree in my garage." So everything's changing. Training camp continues today with the first round of cuts to be made within the next 2 weeks. Moving
to basketball, the Raptors entertained an undermanned Milwaukee last night. How'd that go?
Not as well as it might have, since the man they were without, Giannis Antetokounmpo, should know his name by now. He is one of the best players on earth. So in Antetokounmpo's stead, another of the planet's elite players, Damian Lillard, led the way for the Bucks, 37 points in Milwaukee's victory. So the Raptors, as things stand, 1 game under 500 under their new coach, Darko Rajakovic, and he has a tough task ahead of him tomorrow. They play probably the best team in the NBA, the Boston Celtics. So we will see.
Thanks, Scott. Take care.
You betcha. You too.
Scott Regehr will be here again tomorrow with Morning Sports, as he is every morning. We are cloudy in Winnipeg this morning, although not solidly cloudy. If I look out our studio window here, not bad. In the forecast today, we're going to fall to a low of -1 this afternoon. Still ahead, as I mentioned, we're going to meet a woman who's heading to Hamilton. She says she married into a football family a couple of years ago. They built one of the Bombers, and so yeah, she's off to the Grey Cup. Stay tuned. Also, the mayor will be here in studio for our regular monthly interview. We're talking infill housing. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, we're waiting for the snow. Snow is expected to begin this morning and end this afternoon. A couple centimeters for Winnipeg, but if you are in western Manitoba and parts of the Interlake, you are under a snowfall warning this morning, anywhere from 5 to 15 centimeters possible today before the sky then clears out later today. Winnipeg City Councillor is among people helping a man who is living on Omans Creek. Cindy Gilroy says she and her parents have delivered food and supplies to Bill Pajak. The 52-year-old truck driver lost his job and housing as a result of health issues. He's built himself a shack along the creek using wood pallets, cardboard, and tarps. Pajak says he has applied for provincial housing, but has been told the wait list is long. Gilroy says Pajak is one of many who are unhoused.
It's tough because it's getting colder and colder and colder, and we need places for people to stay. And Bill is a prime example of somebody who could probably be easily housed if we had affordable housing.
The city has announced funding for a pop-up warming shelter for the winter at Siloam Mission. Hundreds of people gathered on a kibbutz in Israel today to say goodbye to Vivian Silver. The 74-year-old Israeli peace activist and former Winnipegger was laid to rest today. Her sister Rahel made the trip from Winnipeg to be part of the service.
She was my hero. It's unbelievable to see so many people here and how important she was to everybody. And she had so much belief in what she was doing.
Silver's home was attacked by Hamas militants on October 7th. Her remains were only recently identified. Now, it appears Israel's military ground offensive in Gaza is about to move into the southern half of the territory. Leaflets being dropped from the sky over the city of Khan Yunis. They urge people to move out of the region for their own safety. Already there are reports of Israeli tanks shelling targets in the outskirts of the city. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. A sexual abuse survivor who says he was molested by Graham James is stepping up pressure on the St. James Assiniboine School Division to do more to protect children. Greg Gilhooly's request to meet with officials comes on the heels of a new lawsuit. Another man is suing James and the school division. He claims officials knew he had been abused by James, who was his substitute teacher. Gilhooly says he was also assaulted by James on school property. He contacted the division a decade ago to share his story so officials could learn from his experience. They passed his request on to their insurer and lawyers.
I was so angry about how I was being treated by the school board, not as a human being who'd experienced something, but as a legal threat to their bottom line, that I approached a law firm in Winnipeg and considered litigation.
Now, Graham James was convicted of sexually abusing players, including Theron Fleury and Sheldon Kennedy, while he coached in the Western Hockey League in the 1980s. Some business owners in Winnipeg's Exchange are giving mixed reviews to an investment strategy for that area. The Exchange District Business Improvement Zone has published a strategy to increase the area's population. But some business owners say they would like to see the biz place a similar emphasis on public safety. Brian Sharfstein owns Canadian Footwear on Adelaide.
People are still coming downtown, but I would tell you that my numbers are growing in my other stores around Winnipeg. Downtown continue to decline because we're doing nothing to build the perception of a safe downtown for both of our employees and the people coming downtown.
Other Exchange business owners complain about reduced foot traffic since the pandemic. The family of Austin Latlin Bercier is in mourning this week after learning he died in fighting in the war in Ukraine. The 25-year-old from Opaskwayak Cree Nation near the Paw joined the Ukrainian army shortly after the conflict began last year. His aunt, Marlene Ross, says Austin was kind-hearted and adventurous who had an infectious smile.
When the war was breaking out in Ukraine, he went over there, called his mom and said, I got to go there, Mom, I got to go and help. I can't stand by and, watch these women and children suffer.
Latlin Bercier's remains have still not been recovered. Ross says no funeral arrangements have been made while the family waits for his remains to be returned to Canada. You can find more on these stories and other news as it's updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
It's 7:35 a.m. on 89.3, and Pat Kanuga has popped back in to let us know what's going on in the regional forecast, which is snowy.
Snow, and let's talk about what's happening in the southwestern corner of the province. Just got a call from Michael in Brandon. Streets are slippery outside of Brandon as well. Michael's on his way to Shiloh, and he said snow-packed and slippery. And we got a call as well from Thomas in the Roblin Russell area. Same thing, snow-packed and slippery. And commuter Keith let us know that his commute from Glenborough to Brandon on highways 2 and 10, same thing, snow-packed and slippery. So, where I'm telling you all this, because Environment Canada has issued a snowfall warning for that part of the province and into the Interlake. Could see anywhere from 5 to 15 centimeters of snow. And that's going to translate into Winnipeg in a while, but we don't expect to see that much. I'm looking at satellite imagery right now, And it's going to be moving past Brandon in the next few hours as it gets up into the Interlake. And Winnipeg's on the cusp. So in the next couple of hours, we're going to see some flurries here. But we're going to be hovering at about 0. We're 1 right now. We're going to get to a 0 to a -1 later in the afternoon. We're going to have some blustery winds as well, gusting to 50 from the northwest. And here in Winnipeg, expecting a couple of centimeters. And with that 0, a lot of it will melt. But that's what's ahead for Winnipeg today in that southwestern corner. Next few days for Winnipeg. So after this snow and 0 today, we rebound tomorrow. 5 and sunny tomorrow. 6 and sunny on Saturday. 4, the Santa Claus Parade downtown. Another 5 with a mix of sun and cloud on Sunday. And we'll see a 4 Monday, but then that's it. By next Tuesday, Wednesday, a -6 and a -10. More seasonal, even below seasonal for Winnipeg and parts of southern Manitoba. Over in Brandon, 0 with that heavy snow, heavy at times. It's going to end again in just a few hours, and we could see 5 to 10 centimeters in Brandon. Wind as well out in Brandon, gusting to 50. A few clouds tonight and down to -9 tomorrow. Sunshine and 4. And just Thompson briefly, -5 on the way to a -8 this afternoon. Temperature's going to fall and just a slight chance of flurries tonight. Partly cloudy, -16. And tomorrow will be cloudy up in Thompson and a -4. Temperatures around 0 and maybe a +1 and +2 in some places today, but not much change right now with temperatures today, Marcy. I'll just mention that traffic line once again. If you are in the southwest corner, Interlake, or in the city of Winnipeg, any problems, 788-3093 is the traffic and commuter line.
All right. Thanks, Pat. Well, let's get ready, Blue Bomber Nation. Several thousand Bomber fans are getting ready to make the trek to Hamilton this weekend. My next guest is one of them. She's going to be up early tomorrow morning. In 24 hours, Tracy Eagle's going to be on a plane along with her husband, and 6 of their friends. And despite it being her 3rd straight trip to the Grey Cup, she says she's relatively new to loving football, but maybe has no choice because a year ago she married into a family that's full-on football fanatics. Now, how full-on? A Blue Bomber linebacker lives with Tracy and the family, and she's in studio. Hi.
Good morning.
So for radio listeners that can't see who you're repping and who you're wearing, this is who lives with you. Tell us about your jersey.
This is number 19, Kyrie Wilson. He has actually been with my husband now for about 6 years during the season. And I have been around for about 3.5, 4 years in this relationship. So yeah, he's definitely part of our family, 100%.
So what's the excitement in your house been as, last weekend, that game? I was nervous during that game. I was like, oh, they better get it into gear here and make sure they seal the deal. What was it like for you when they did make it into the Grey Cup?
Oh my goodness. That game was absolutely so exciting. We were in our season ticket seats, and it was, it's always, every game is very exciting in our section 134. But last weekend was definitely, and then when Kyrie got the interception, it was beyond exciting.
Yeah, I can't imagine, right? Yeah. Explosive. What's it like? Do you get any inside scoop because Kyrie lives with you, or does he leave?
Absolutely not. Okay. We get all our information off of social media. When he walks through the door, he is very adamant that, nope, it's family time. We do not talk about work. So no, we get absolutely no inside scoop from Kyrie. He's definitely, when he's with us, he's just one of the family.
How do you support him given that, though? Because obviously you're living with a professional athlete. How do you support him through the season to make sure that he has all he needs to win, and be in that space to play his best?
Yeah, he definitely has, a couple days going into the game. He has his routines. We definitely give him his space. He has certain meals that he eats. He has, he has his regime, so we just give him the space to do that. And we are a very close family, so he's with us all the time. He's sitting in the living room all the time with us, watching TV or movies or family dinners every night. He's just, You
don't have to out sort of any of his routine. That's personal.
Yes.
But can you share anything with us about whether or not he likes quiet or whether or not there's certain things that involve the whole family?
No, he likes quiet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Focus.
Yeah, he is a very focused individual. Absolutely.
For yourself, who are you going to the Grey Cup with?
My husband, Peter Posilibo, and our friends Tracy and Kevin. Rhonda and Kevin. We're heavy on the Tracys, heavy on the Kevins this weekend, and Shauna and Mike. So we have an Airbnb house, so we're looking forward to.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, it will be.
What do you enjoy about going to Grey Cups as a Manitoban, as a Bomber fan?
You know what? As you had mentioned before we got on the radio,
when
we were talking before, it really is one big Canadian party. And when the Bombers are representing, it's a whole nother level to it. So it's, it's great. It's just so much fun. And it's just.
How do you like to spend your time? Because I know having covered Grey Cups, there's always a lot of choices. So you can sort of just hang out with friends and family, go to the game, or you can, go to a lot of these events.
We take in the events. They are very well done. When we were in Hamilton 2 years ago, wasn't as much just because of COVID, but Regina last year, they did a great job of hosting Grey Cup and all the different events and all the different party rooms. We bought the 3-day party pass. So no, we are in. We partake in everything we possibly can.
I love that you mentioned the section you sit in as season ticket holders. Because, yes, it's about sports, but really it's about community and the people you're at with the game.
Yes.
When you go to Grey Cup, do you have people that you know from other provinces by now then?
No, because we sit with friends and family.
You're sticking with the blue.
We stick with the blue. So we do sit with, Kyrie gets our tickets for us.
Yep.
So we sit with the Bomber crew when we're there, which is great too.
Do you get to go to warm-up then and things like that are more private for family members of players?
No.
Okay.
We usually go a little bit earlier just to watch the warm-up, but nothing that any other fan couldn't watch.
Yeah, amazing. That was one of the things that I loved about covering Grey Cups was seeing some of the sort of practice and witnessing different players. Some of them would be really joking around and being really social, and others would be even there preparing, leave me alone, put my headphones on. It's just such an individual thing. Do you have any predictions for Sunday? How do you think we're going to do?
Oh, we will bring home the cup.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thinking 6 or 10 point spread.
Okay. So you're going with a decisive win.
Absolutely.
Maybe not a blowout. Montreal's scary. They're an underdog, so sometimes they can come with it, right?
I know, yeah. And they had a great game last weekend. So
they did have a great game last weekend. Thank you so much, Tracy, for coming in, and really appreciate
you for having
it.
Me.
Enjoy the Grey Cup.
Oh, we will.
If you're enjoying the Grey Cup too, let us know what you're making, where you're watching, or if you're going as well. You can always call us with your story and your love of the Bombers in the listener line. Tracy Eagle, her husband, and 6 of their friends are going to Hamilton early tomorrow morning. They're hoping to see the Bombers win another Grey Cup, the one that we missed out on last year.
Sometimes you have to send in a whole new song to make a Broadway hit.
Send in the clowns.
Sometimes a teaser on TV works.
Here's a free minute from Pippin.
Or you can use a little hip-hop.
My name is Alexander Hamilton.
The show must go on. Broadway Marketing on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
All right, Manitoba, if you've been listening the last couple of days, then you know this theme means, pardon me, you're about to have a chance to win tickets to something coming up next Wednesday in Winnipeg. CBC Radio's Laugh Out Loud's recording live comedy at the Gas Station Theatre and Arts Centre. Ali Hassan's going to be on stage with comedians from our city to bring you a night of laughs. So we have 2 sets of tickets to go to this. And to win, we want to hear from the future comics out there. We've been asking kids to call the listener line with your best jokes. On Monday, Ali Hassan's going to judge the jokes and tell you who's won the tickets. Here are some of the kid calls that we got.
Hi, it's Xavier, and I have a joke. What did the pirate say when he turned 80? Or matey. Bye.
Hi, my name is Jenny, and I'm 10, and my joke is that how is diarrhea hereditary? It runs in your genes.
Oh, not a good joke for over breakfast. But a good joke, Jenny. I like it. Both of you will be entered to win tickets to next week. Xavier and Jenny, thank you so much for calling. We're taking more calls. You still have a chance to win. So Ali Hassan is going to be judging the jokes on Monday here. We're taking more entries on the listener line. Tell us your joke, kids, for a chance to win. 788-3205. And make sure to include your name clearly off the top and how we can get in touch with you. We want to make sure we get your names right so we can credit you for your funny. 7:46 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. or on the app. We should just play kids every morning, I think, right? Always make me smile. Cloudy and 1 degree in the city. We're going to be around -1 today in Winnipeg. Windy, and as Pat's been saying, we've got about 2 centimeters of snow falling, which might be good for my next guest because the mayor of the city of Winnipeg is here. They're going to light the Christmas tree tonight. And in a moment, we'll turn to serious issues. But how are you feeling about that tonight?
Looking forward to it. 5:45 tonight at City Hall. We are lighting the Christmas tree outside of City Hall. Everyone's invited, Marcy. And if Pat could kind of work his magic and provide a little bit of snowfall right around that time, it would just really make the moment.
So don't disappoint the kids, Pat. We're all looking at you, including Mayor Scott Gillingham. No pressure, no pressure. So we actually have Scott Gillingham, Mr. Mayor, we have some tape to play for you. Because often when you come in for the monthly interview, we cover a range of topics. But right now, a lot of people are talking about this proposal that came through Executive Policy Committee. So no one in the city disputes the idea that we need solutions to our housing crisis, but not everyone agrees to this proposed change to the zoning rules that's on its way. Earlier this week, in case you missed this, the Mayor's Executive Policy Committee voted 5-1 to work to allow construction of fourplexes up to a height of 4 stories, anywhere within 800 meters of frequent transit routes. Now, this change, it said, is necessary to access almost $200 million in federal funding. So here are some of the Winnipeggers who weighed in on CBC this week, starting with Lanny McGuinness, President and CEO of the Manitoba Home Builders Association.
Our industry, our associations are very ready to help work on putting together a workable solution to help do this in a way that makes sense for the city of Winnipeg, and it makes sense for land developers who are looking at making investments in these types of projects.
We have essentially a random mix of much taller homes, the new ones that are being built, next to older low homes. And as a result, a lot of the older low homes have big walls now sitting right next to their homes.
Cities grow, change, evolve over time. What this is doing is to say what it can grow and change over time into is expanded a little bit.
These are the type of things that look good on paper, but won't necessarily translate into the type of development that the federal, provincial, or even municipalities are looking for.
So as you heard, there are a lot of people, a lot of different views on this. Aaron Moore, professor in the Department of Political Science, University of Winnipeg. Brian Pincott, former Calgary City Councillor, moved to Winnipeg in 2019. Ray Heslin lives in Glenwood. He's worried about residents' rights to appeal developments. And then we did hear off the top from Lanny McGuinness, President and CEO of the Manitoba Home Builders Association, who worked with the city on the Housing Accelerator Fund application. And so, Mayor Scott Gillingham, I know there's a lot for us to chew on there. Why don't we start with sort of your view on this? So I mentioned that, to access the funding, to get more housing, there's certain stipulations. Can you speak to those in the city who are listening about why you believe this could be the right way forward for our city in terms of building?
Well, first of all, the fund that we have applied to the federal government for is a fund that the feds are rolling out across Canada. Many other cities have made these changes, and the reason we're making the changes is because the federal government, frankly, is imposing them on us. They said if you want access to the funds, you need to make these changes. So the changes that I propose in the motion that was adopted at Executive Policy Committee are changes that reflect what the federal government is requiring us to do. These are changes to our application. They're not changes to the zoning bylaw yet, because there will be an entire separate process to change the zoning bylaw. And that would require a public hearing. That would open the opportunity for members of the public, other councillors, members of the community to participate in that bylaw hearing process. What is yet to be defined, and we're still working on it, there'd still be rules around it. It wouldn't be the Wild West where you could just build 4 stories anywhere on any lot, because there's still requirements for height and lot size and front yards and side yard setbacks. So there's a lot of work yet to do. But Marcy, as you said off the top, we need housing in this city. We need housing for seniors, for newcomers, for students. We need affordable and deeply affordable housing. We need to build housing. And what I do not want to see is I don't want to see Winnipeg fall behind other cities across this country that are accessing this funding and are receiving this funding. And so we'll continue to work for a Made in Winnipeg solution, but getting access to these funds is really important, because this funding will unlock private investment funding. It'll unlock non-for-profit builders as well.
So for clarity then, based on what you've said, for residents who are concerned about, as you nodded to, the character of neighborhoods being affected, balconies overlooking, backyards, and really at the heart of it, we heard, the right to appeal something if they don't feel it's right in their neighborhood, if somebody feels like our whole street doesn't want this. Do they lose that if we make the changes the feds want to access this funding, or can people still appeal processes?
In some cases, there would be as of right. So yes, a property owner would have the right to build in accordance with the rules that we set out. And in that case, there would not be an opportunity to appeal. However, I think what's also important to remind everybody is that where changes like this have taken place, for example, in Minneapolis, the entire state of California, the change has been very gradual. There hasn't been 4-story buildings, with 4 units built, all across the cities and the communities immediately. The change has been gradual, and someone did say one of the clips we heard is that. Cities do change. What we're really doing, what I want us to be doing, is taking a look, Marcy, at what kind of city do we need, not just today, what do we need 20 years from now? Those are the decisions we have to make at council. We have to make long-term decisions. We need housing, our city's growing, and we need to make sure there's places for people to live.
I think a lot of people look around now and already feel like it's a problem. We see a lot of, the small house knocked down, something really tall built beside. People are already responding, and they might be looking at this as saying, wow, we already have tons of this type of building for density in Winnipeg. What does this next step mean? What kinds of things do you want further discussion on to make sure it doesn't get out of hand then? As you're saying, there's other places where it hasn't in your view, but for the Winnipeg experience, what would you say to people who have that worry or still not really trusting that this is going to be the right thing for us?
I think what residents need to have, and as do council, as does our staff and builders, we need certainty and predictability. And so we need to establish a set of rules around what can be built and where it can be built. The federal government's requirements that are imposing on us are actually in some ways fairly broad. There's not a lot of specificity. What we're trying to do right now is build in that specificity and really define what it is that can be built. What can be built on a certain lot size.
Do you see anything out there right now in Winnipeg where you're like, oh, that actually is too close to a fence or too tall or not right for this neighborhood? Or so far as mayor, when you look around, do you think that we've done okay?
I think for the most part, we're doing okay. I acknowledge this. I acknowledge that in some neighborhoods are more affected by infill than others. And I served for 8 years as a city councillor and was on the appeal committee's rotation often. I would, make decisions on these
What
bills.
Neighborhoods are you thinking of?
Well, I know that Councillor Mays in St. Vital has talked about certain areas that he's, been dealing with and certain areas for Councillor Orlico in River Heights. In St. James, when I was city councillor, we had some infill development that some members of the community were opposed to as well. When we look, though, at the broader need of our community, 2 things I would emphasize once again. We need housing. We need it built. And I don't want to be... We can't be leaving federal money on the table that will leverage private sector investment. We can't fall behind other cities across this country. So we will find a Made in Winnipeg solution, but it's important that we say yes to these funds.
We have multi-layers of housing needs when it comes to housing as well. So I wonder about when we talk about affordable housing, rental units, we need housing in areas that have access to grocery stores. How will you make sure that this doesn't sort of snowball and add housing on paper, but it doesn't turn into developers looking to make a quick profit, tearing down houses in affluent neighborhoods, putting up fourplexes, and then they're collecting big rent checks, but it doesn't get to the heart of our affordable housing issues?
Well, a couple of things that we have to make sure we do, and we can't lose sight of what our application was. We have made an application that has to the federal government with 7 priorities, and those priorities are range, and they would ensure that 25% of what we're looking to do is to build affordable housing. And so there's 7 priorities we have. One is around affordable housing. One is around adding servicing capacity, infrastructure, wastewater capacity, for example.
Can this money flow to affordable housing?
Yes.
Yes.
This money can unlock and incentivize and encourage affordable housing. In fact, that's specifically in our application. And we have to report back to the federal government on how we're doing against our targets to get the next round of funding. So there's an obligation we have to report on meeting our targets.
How do we make sure they're not turned into Airbnbs?
Well, one of the things that we have put in place through our new short-term rental rules is, as of today, or as of February of this year, the only short-term rental you can have is in your primary residence.
Okay. So that's taken care of.
There's some grandfather clauses for those that owned Airbnbs or short-term rental units other than their primary residence prior to February. But as you know, today, if you purchased a house and you wanted to turn it into an Airbnb, you've got to live in it.
Lots more to talk about. Obviously, we'll get through this. It's still going to council. But before you go, we talked about the tree tonight. But you are also going to the Grey Cup.
Yes, very excited to be supporting our Bombers. I know Tracy was just on prior to me being on, and she's going, and it's going to be a great celebration. I know there's a lot of Winnipeg fans, of course, who will be here watching and Grey Cup parties at home, so go Bombers.
Did you make any bets with the Montreal Mayor?
I did not make any bets with the Montreal Mayor. Mayor Sim from Vancouver had called me about the Western Final, so there is a photo of him making good on his bet, and he wore a Bomber jersey to one of his council meetings, but have not made any bets with Mayor Plante from Montreal yet.
Okay, well, we'll have to see. So I'm waiting for the mayor karaoke bet. I know you guys always do the jerseys, but I want to hear the mayor sing. So.
Maybe a future mayor.
All right, Scott Gillingham, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Marcy.
That is the mayor of the city of Winnipeg, Scott Gillingham. And if you want to weigh in on what your thoughts are on the way forward for our city when it comes to increasing housing, 788-3205. It is 3 minutes to 8 o'clock. Heather Wells is in with our news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a sexual abuse survivor who says he was molested by Graham James is stepping up pressure on the St. James Assiniboia School Division to do more to protect children. Greg Gilhooly's request to meet with officials comes on the heels of a new lawsuit, another man suing James and the school division. We'll hear more about that. And Vivian Silver was laid to rest in Israel today. The Israeli peace activist and former Winnipegger's home was destroyed in the October 7th Hamas attack. We are going to hear from one of her sons coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Pat's in with traffic here on, guessing, southwestern Manitoba, right?
Yeah, just very briefly, getting calls from Highway 16 from around Brandon on the way to Shiloh as well. All those highways in that area, Highway 457. And Deb called number 8 from Sandy Hook to Winnipeg, snow-packed and slippery. Gets better once you pass Petersfield, but again, that snow is coming down towards Winnipeg. We should be seeing it in the next hour or so, looking at satellite imagery here. So take it easy in southwestern Manitoba and the Interlake, where there is a snowfall warning, 5 to 10 centimeters over the next few hours here.
So why is this happening? Because there is that warning, as Pat mentioned, in the southwest. In Winnipeg, however, in our forecast, we also have snow, 2 centimeters expected, a cloudy day, windy, and the temperature will fall to -1. So that's what we're looking for. Right now in the city, it's 1 degree. Coming up on Information Radio after 8 o'clock, after a 28-year-old Winnipeg woman is charged with 15 offenses involving her alleged relationship with a teenage girl she allegedly coached. We're going to talk about why and how women sexually abuse and groom their victims, and why one expert says she expects more cases to come forward.
On Q with Tom Power. Geddy Lee from the Canadian band Rush has released his long-awaited memoir, My Effin' Life. He talks about growing up the son of Holocaust survivors, quitting high school to start a band, watching Rush take off, and the death of his longtime collaborator, Neil Peart. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel-Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
The Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, wants to pull her province out of Canada's pension plan, and she says she'll stand up to Ottawa on many other fronts as well. There has been pushback. Danielle Smith herself is here to respond, coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning from CBC News. I'm Marcia Young. Trade Minister Mary Ng is suggesting trade talks with India will not resume, at least not until India's government cooperates with the investigation into the murder of a Sikh activist in BC. Ng spoke to reporters last night at the APEC summit in San Francisco. Here's what she said when asked about the trade talks resuming.
Well, right now, the focus for Canada is to let the work of the investigation proceed. You've heard me and the government talk about how important it is that that investigation happens, given that we had a Canadian killed on Canadian soil.
Ng pointed out Canadian companies are still doing business in India, and she said her job is to make sure they have the support they need. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau publicly accused India of being involved in the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar back in September. Since then, Ottawa has accused Narendra Modi's government of failing to cooperate with the investigation. The Israeli army says it has blown up a house belonging to the political leader of Hamas. Ismail Haniyeh was likely not home at the time. He is believed to be in Qatar, but Israel says his house was being used as terrorist infrastructure. As Briar Stewart tells us, that airstrike is just one of many targeted attacks bombarding the Gaza Strip.
Outside of a hospital in Han Yunis, a city in southern Gaza, mourners prepare to bury their dead, killed in an Israeli airstrike. It's been several days since the Hamas-run health ministry has updated the death toll in the region, which officials say is because there's been a collapse in communications and hospital services. Israel is facing growing pressure over the human cost of its war to eliminate Hamas. The military claims it has found weapons and Hamas insignia at Al-Shifa hospital. Israel raided the facility Wednesday after days of intense fighting, but there's been no mention of finding any tunnels or underground command center yet. Health officials in Gaza say Israeli troops have damaged the hospital and some of the medical equipment. CBC has not been able to verify any of these claims.
Israel did not go in with a large number of troops.
U.S. President Joe Biden reiterated last night that the U.S. believes Hamas has a headquarters under the hospital. He says he's also made it clear to Israel's prime minister that it would be a mistake for the country to try and control Gaza once the war is over.
So I'm not a fortune teller. I can't tell you how long it's going to last. But I can tell you I don't think it ultimately ends until there's a two-state solution.
The war in Gaza has led to increased tension throughout the entire region. Today, gunfire erupted at a checkpoint on the main road between Jerusalem and the West Bank city of Bethlehem. At least 6 people were wounded. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Jerusalem.
David Cameron has made a visit to Ukraine. He was in Kyiv yesterday. This morning, he visited the southern port city of Odessa. It is his first trip abroad for him as Britain's new foreign minister. The UK wants to be seen as a frontrunner when it comes to supporting Ukraine. It was the first Western nation to send tanks. As Abby Kodawson reports, Cameron's trip shows Britain is still supporting Ukraine.
The wider-scale war in Ukraine has seen 3 British prime ministers and 3 foreign secretaries.
Yes, sir. Welcome. Enormous honour to meet you.
The latest top diplomat to represent the UK, David Cameron, was just in Kyiv yesterday, signaling the country's ongoing support.
Is that we will continue to give you the moral support, the diplomatic support, the economic support, but above all, the military support that you need, not just this year and next year, but however long it takes.
On the job for less than a week, Cameron making it clear that Ukraine remains a top priority, not just for Britain, but the West. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is concerned about that.
Now, the world is not focused on the situation or on our battlefield and in Ukraine, and that's dividing focus really doesn't help.
The British Foreign Ministry says a UK-led military program has trained more than 30,000 Ukrainian soldiers. The program in its initial form was rolled out by Cameron in 2015 when he was Prime Minister. But the Ukrainian counteroffensive has stalled. An official with the president's office, though, said earlier this month Ukrainian soldiers have gained a foothold on the eastern bank of the Dnipro River. Russia insists its setback will be short-lived. Some analysts have argued the multiple delays by Western governments to provide Ukraine with weapons allowed Moscow to solidify its defensive lines, making the counteroffensive much more difficult for Kyiv. Cameron made no new announcements around weapons on this trip, but the trip was meant to show Britain has not forgotten Ukraine. Abby Kodawson, CBC News, London.
Kenya's parliament has approved the deployment of 1,000 police officers to Haiti. They will help deal with rising gang violence in the Caribbean nation. Sending officers to Haiti has been a contentious issue for Kenya. The planned deployment was blocked by the High Court in Nairobi in October. But violence has escalated in Haiti this week. A heavily armed gang surrounded a hospital in the capital, Port-au-Prince, yesterday. Patients were trapped and had to be rescued by police. Myanmar's ruling military junta is stepping up its fight against armed rebels across the country. It is ordering a full mobilization of all government workers and also other citizens with military experience. This as the UN warns millions have been displaced across the country. John Northcott joins me now with the story. And John, Myanmar has been unstable for years. So what is different now?
Marcia, what's changed is the scale and success of the rebel fighting. A government spokesperson describes, quote, heavy assaults from a significant number of armed rebel soldiers. Those attacks are in the northeast, the east, and the west. The UN reports some 2 million people are displaced by the fighting, and the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, says he was greatly concerned by the expansion of the conflict. Myanmar, formerly known as Burma, borders Thailand, China, and India. Thousands have fled across all its neighbors' borders.
Now we have nothing. So cannot go back also. Is difficult to go back, so we have to stay here. How long we stay here, we also don't know. Nobody knows.
The latest report suggests the government has lost control over much of its 1,600-kilometer-long border with India in particular. All Myanmar's neighbors are watching the situation very closely.
How have the rebels been so effective?
Various rebel groups have been fighting in Myanmar for decades, but the 2021 coup that ousted Nobel Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi seems to have unified the rebels. They're made up of disparate ethnic groups, but they're fighting now under what they're calling the Road to Naypyidaw campaign to take control of the capital. Jason Tower from the U.S. Institute of Peace says the military in Myanmar is facing an existential threat.
At some point, it's either going to have to give up very significant parts of territory, or it might even be pushed to potentially make even bigger concessions.
Despite the fact the government has heavy military equipment from China and Russia, the rebels seem to be more organized, have better morale, and are now using drones to great effect on the battlefield.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, Marcia.
My co-host John Northcott in studio. And here at home, Alberta is trying out a new way to battle future wildfires in the province. It's now testing out a helicopter that can be used to fight fires at night. As Julia Wong reports, other jurisdictions are keeping a close eye on the trial.
This state-of-the-art helicopter comes equipped with night vision goggles for its pilots and the crew. Alberta wildfire helicopter specialist Aaron Barnhart.
They amplify light up to 60,000 times. It's one of the more modern generations of night vision goggles. So that allows us to navigate, see hazards, identify active parts of a wildfire.
Alberta Wildfire says the nighttime chopper was used several times this past wildfire season, which was the worst in Alberta's history. A total of 1,094 wildfires burned more than 2.2 million hectares. The previous record was 1.35 million hectares burned in 1981.
Firefighting at night can be more effective due to lower temperatures, higher humidities.
While there are advantages, Mike Flanagan, a wildfire science professor at Thompson Rivers University, says there can also be challenges.
With the fires raging through the night, the helicopter won't be very efficient unless it's a small fire. You need to be very careful because your visibility, even with the technology, is still reduced from daytime.
Alberta's at the start of a 5-year trial and is believed to be the only province in the country with this type of chopper right now. Flanagan says it could set a precedent.
If the rollout is successful in Alberta, other fire management agencies across Canada will be looking at it and see the lessons learned from Alberta.
On the heels of the worst fire season the province has ever seen. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, the snow started coming down right around 8 o'clock. We've been getting calls from all over the city this morning. Welcome to Thursday. I'm Marcy Markusa. This is Information Radio. You're listening to CBC, live from downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, or on the app. This half hour on the program, after a 28-year-old Winnipeg woman is charged with 15 offenses involving her alleged relationship with a teenage girl she coached in hockey, we're going to explore why and how women sexually abuse and groom their victims, and why one expert says she expects more of these cases to come out in the future. Also, switching gears this half hour, we have a chance for you to win some tickets to a show tonight. So if you want to head out and about, award-winning Canadian singer-songwriter Old Man Ludica is performing at the West End Cultural Centre. Stay tuned. Could you be our winner? Right now, let's turn to Heather Wells for news headlines.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg City Councillor is among those helping a man who's living on Omans Creek near Polo Park. Cindy Gilroy says she and her parents have delivered food and supplies to Bill Pajak. The 52-year-old truck driver lost his job and housing as a result of health issues. He has built a shack using wood pallets, cardboard, and tarps. And Gilroy says this case shows the need for more affordable housing in Winnipeg. The family of Austin Laughlin-Bercier is asking for prayers that his body will be recovered and returned to Canada so a funeral can be held. The 25-year-old died in fighting in Ukraine. He was from Opaskwayak Cree Nation and joined the Ukrainian army shortly after the conflict started last year. I'll be back with those stories and more in our next local news at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, you know, Pat, I know a lot of people might be grumbling. I got hoods up, hands in pockets here in Winnipeg as that snow's really coming down now, but it's kind of pretty with the lights, the stars, trees. Well, it is kind of pretty. I can't help it. We've been mentioning that the Christmas tree is going to be lit outside City Hall tonight, and it's kind of weather you might want for that.
Maybe. And well, I can tell you right now in the southwestern corner of the
and
province,
maybe not.
Interlake, yeah, maybe not. We heard from Charla in Dauphin, Lake Audie area, about 4 inches of new snow on Highway 10 headed up towards Dauphin, and getting calls from other parts of southwestern Manitoba, Broadman Russell area, Interlake area as well, with snow-packed and slippery highways. And right now, yes, right at 8 o'clock, right downtown, the snow started here, and I got some calls right before 8 saying it's already raining out or snowing on Stafford and Portage and Main. So that's what we're seeing in the city of Winnipeg right now. We do have a snowfall warning for the southwestern corner of the province and the Interlake, but not for Winnipeg. We only expect to see a couple of centimeters here in the city because we're going to be hovering around 0. It is 1 on the plus side right now. We're going to get to 0, then late afternoon, a -1. And we expect to see some wind gusts as well. And those are going to be gusting to about, 30 to 50 from the northwest as the temperature falls to that -1 late afternoon. So a blustery kind of yucky day. I'm calling it a blip because after today, we're back to almost what we had yesterday. 6 in the sunshine tomorrow, or actually 5 tomorrow in the sunshine, 6 on Saturday for that Santa Claus parade, and Sunday a 5, 4 on Monday. Next week, though, -6 and -10 for daytime highs by Tuesday and Wednesday. So if you love winter like Marcy does, it's coming, and we'll get a little bit of a sneak preview on those lower temperatures by middle of next week. Over in Brandon, I should mention it is -1 right now with snow falling, and Thompson, you are a -6. So take it easy out there on the highways. No reports of stalls, crashes, or major incidents inside the city, but I'm standing by at the traffic line at 788-3093 if there's anything to let us know about.
Well, a warning, our first interview does contain details of alleged abuse. 28-year-old Madison Billick has won coaching awards, but now she is facing more than 15 charges, including sexual assault, sexual interference, assault with a weapon, and luring. She's accused of, quote, grooming and gaining the trust of an underage hockey player that she once coached. While none of the charges have been proven in court, we're asking this morning, how common is it for women to sexually groom other young girls? Elizabeth Jeglick is with us, a professor of psychology at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York. She's also a sexual violence researcher, and she has published an article on this very subject. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what was your reaction when you heard and read about this case?
Unfortunately, I wasn't altogether too surprised. We are seeing increasing reports of women who are perpetrating sexual abuse, and while only 2% of convicted sex offenders in the United States are women. When people self-report who their perpetrator is, when you ask survivors, about 12 to 14% are reporting that the perpetrator is a woman. So it's much more common than we actually think.
Are there differences? I mean, how common are, when you think about female sexual abusers in your research, what do we understand about, so to speak, grooming behaviors and how they interact with people that would become their victims? Is there a difference between females and males?
Overall, we have found very few differences. We have studied grooming behavior both in men and in female perpetrators. And we see that common behaviors, kind of selecting vulnerable victims, gaining access and isolation to the child, developing their trust and the trust of those around them, like guardians and institutions, and then desensitizing them to sexual content and physical touch prior to the abuse happening, and then afterwards kind of engaging in what we call post-abuse maintenance behavior. So telling the person it's a secret, don't tell anybody, we're in love, and you wanted this kind of to prevent the child from disclosing or being detected. The only thing that we did find is that female perpetrators are more likely to, use emotional tactics, and they're exposing their naked bodies to the child more frequently. So they're using more overt sexuality in the grooming process.
Are there stereotypes of social expectations that get in, or social expectations like that get in the way of people seeing this? Female abusers and children reporting it?
Absolutely. When you think of a sex offender, I think a lot of us still think of that stranger danger, that, person in the white van that, that's going to come and offer your child candy. I think we tend to have, we believe that perpetrators are men for the large part, and for the large part they are. However, women usually have the stereotype of being, maternal and caring, and so we often will overlook behaviors that might be indicative of sexual abuse when engaged in by a woman, and they might be less likely to be detected because we tend to explain them away because of the gender.
Are there some typical characteristics or traits of a female who is a groomer?
What we do see in studies of females who perpetrate sexual abuse is they tend to have, more trauma histories or mental health problems, and they themselves often may have been abused, both, physically or sexually. However, it's, we still are very, there's not really a clear pathway to who becomes a perpetrator and who does not.
Now, the alleged abuser in this case was a hockey coach, and often when we look at coaches overall, I mean, they're trusted by parents. Why does sexual grooming continue to happen when in the world of sport, when we do see, so many efforts to put safeguards in place, we continue to have these stories?
Yes, I think it's hard. Obviously, I think we see increased levels of sexual abuse in sport in general, but also specifically among coaches, because they have the opportunity, due to the nature of their relationships with athletes, to spend time alone, to transport them back and forth, and especially at the higher and more elite levels, there's a lot of power and control that is yielded by coaches, because if somebody reports something, then they might lose their opportunity to kind of advance in their sport. And so oftentimes it is normal for a coach to touch a player in the context of the sport, or, because they're spotting them or they're showing them how their body should be. And also they might be spending, overnight trips because they travel, or they might be, helping parents out by driving them back and forth to practices that, when people are overwhelmed with the daily aspects of life. So when a coach offers to help, they're spending time alone with the child. So we do see it happening more often in the sporting context.
I know that you have also talked about the fact that the idea that a sexual abuser may groom an institution or an entire family as well. Like it goes beyond an individual. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So they not only have to get the trust of the child, but those around them, and that's partly what we call kind of familial or institutional grooming. So they portray themselves as very trusting, so that, parents feel comfortable leaving their child around that individual, because that's somebody who cares about their child. They often may spend time with the family, and so the parents often, will allow the child to spend overnight trips with the individual. But they also groom institutions, because these are often people who are kind of upstanding citizens in our communities. They often receive rewards and accolades, And so, when we see behaviors that might be boundary violations, we tend to explain it away and say, but that's a well-respected coach. That's somebody who really cares about the kids. And so we don't necessarily see those things as being sexually abusive behaviors.
Are we seeing an actual increase in these cases involving women accused of sex abuse? What do you think is going to happen moving forward?
We are seeing increased reports of female perpetrators. Now, it's unclear because of the low base rate to begin with, whether historically these just haven't been reported and now we're reporting more. So we really don't know. But, very rarely a week goes by that I'm not seeing a case of female sexual abuse in the media. So I think we're kind of starting to recognize that females can be perpetrators and what those behaviors look like. So I suspect that we're going to be continuing to see more reports of females who are engaging in these types of behaviors.
Just as a last question, what training, in your view, needs to happen for institutions like hockey programs, schools, and for families in the future, to get ahead of this?
I think, obviously, a lot of institutions are now implementing safeguards, both, environmentally, like having two adults, always around minors. But I think we also need to incorporate the idea that females can be perpetrators into all of our trainings, because I think most of the trainings still to this day, focus on male perpetrators and not female perpetrators. And we are also seeing that adolescent females are engaging in sexual grooming and sexual abuse as well. And then also discussing what sexual grooming behaviors are, what they look like, and we've identified specific behaviors that might be more indicative of sexual grooming that precedes the sexual abuse. So that can all be helpful in training.
Thank you very much for weighing in and for your time today.
Thank you. Take care.
That's Elizabeth Jeglick. She's a professor of psychology at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York, and she's a sexual violence researcher. The article she published around what we've been talking about is called Red Flag Child Sexual Grooming Behaviors for Educators, Sports Organizations, and Parents. So if you search her name, Elizabeth, Jeglick is Jeglic, you can find her publications, including the Red Flag infographic.
Do you have ideas on how CBC can become more accessible? Well, we want to hear from you. How can CBC become a barrier-free public broadcaster for people living with disabilities? We'd like to invite you to share your ideas with us by registering for our public consultations at cbc.radio-canada.ca/accessibility. With your help, we can make CBC more accessible for all.
In the last hour of Information Radio, in case you missed it, we are talking to Mayor Scott Gillingham here in the studio. Winnipeg City Council Executive Policy Committee approved a package of zoning changes to make it easier for developers to build more housing. The city's saying they need to access federal funds to do this, and that's one of the requirements. But we got into talking about whether or not that's the way forward. And this still has to go to council. Right now, though, we put it to you, and you're calling on listener line.
It's Anne-Marie Jensen, just calling about the infill housing legislation. I live in Fort Garry, and my street has had continuous infill built since I've moved here 17 years ago. And my comment is that I have a mud back lane with a lot more traffic, and I've had 2 scrapings and no gravel in the last 2 years. There's a lot more parking in the front because these houses are built with no garages and lots of cars. If you have multiple residences, lots of cars, lots of street parking, and more traffic. So those are my only comments. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Hello, my name is Carolyn Lute. This is with regards to the housing infill. Just listening to the program this morning with Marcy and Mayor Scott Gillingham. I live in the Wolseley West Broadway area, and there's been a lot of infill housing, particularly. I'll just use the examples on the corner of Maryland and Westminster. And these housing infills have been built right up to the sidewalk. We've lost a great deal of just green space in the area, and it's not only aesthetically, but it really gives the feeling of being in, more of a concrete jungle feeling. It's definitely changed the way the area feels. And I just am concerned about that going forward, that we're losing a lot of green. Like, can the infill, can there not be consideration for green space with infills, not allowing them to build straight up to the sidewalk. The other thing is 25% seems like a low number for low-income housing. I bet the percentages of people needing housing are considerably higher in the low-income housing than they are in the affordable housing market. Thank you very much for listening, and enjoy the show. Bye-bye.
Thank you all for listening and for weighing in as well on infill. It's a big topic all across the city. We're asking, is it the way forward, or should we, what should we do alternately, as we do need all kinds of different housing? If you want to hear the interview with the mayor and how he weighed in, you can check out our YouTube channel, CBC Manitoba's YouTube channel. If you subscribe there, you can also check out the CBC Listen app as well, where you'll hear our show and all the items posted. Time right now is 8:26 a.m. Well, on a snowy Thursday morning, we've got a special treat for you, because award-winning Canadian singer-songwriter Old Man Ludica is performing tonight at the West End Cultural Centre. We have 3 pairs of tickets to give away to the show, in fact. So call the listener line for that too. 788-3205, or you can email win@cbc.ca. And while you are emailing, here's a little Old Man Ludica featuring Bahamas with I Skipped a Stone.
I skipped a stone at least a dozen times. I turned and the beach was deserted, so the victory was just mine. I tried to call on my way back to the car. You've had your phone 5 years, but it's never where you are. Oh, when I call and I'm blue, needing you. It goes for days, I'm chasing gigs, you're chasing kids. Everything we need to say just simmers like a pot with a tight fit lid. But then today, when I needed you the most, you were there breathless and your phone was not lost. Oh, you were home with the kids, it was good. You are the sunshine and the moon. You are the sunshine and the moon. I reflect you in dark rooms, coming home kind of blue really soon. Got some kind of faith in us. When I hear it in your voice, I know I have to trust that coming home blue is not the worst thing. I'm so glad, honey, that I get to wear your ring. Oh, I love the way that you are here in every tune. You are the sunshine and the moon. You are the sunshine and the moon. I reflect you in dark rooms, coming home kind of blue really soon. I skipped a stone at least a dozen times. Oh.
The winners of our tickets to see Old Man Ludica tonight are Cheryl and Ursula. Thank you very much for entering this morning to see Old Man Ludica. Pat's going to get a hold of you post-show to make sure you get the tickets. Old Man Ludica playing the West End Cultural Centre tonight, and enjoy it if you also have tickets to the show. That tune, by the way, is called I Skipped a Stone. Well, lots of snow coming down in Winnipeg, and it's time for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. It is 1 degree and we do have that snow. We're expecting snow to end later this morning, windy and clearing, and temperature falling to -1. If you are in western Manitoba, parts of the Interlake, you're under a snowfall warning. Anywhere from 5 to 15 centimeters is possible today. A Winnipeg City Councillor says governments and agencies need to work together to help people like Bill Pajek. The 52-year-old truck driver has health issues and lost his job and his housing. Pajek has built a shack for himself and his dog on Omans Creek near Polo Park. He says he has applied for provincial funding for housing, but has been told the wait list is long. City Councillor Cindy Gilroy says she and her parents have delivered food and supplies to Pajek, and she says he could easily be housed if Winnipeg had more affordable housing.
This is just an affordable housing issue. It's not even necessarily a supportive housing issue, and it's still a struggle to find housing. And so I really hope that we can kind of work collaboratively together to find housing for Bill.
Gilroy says Pajek is one of many people she's been in contact with in her ward who are unhoused. A funeral was held for Vivian Silver this morning in Israel. The 74-year-old former Winnipegger was a longtime peace activist in Israel. Her kibbutz was attacked by Hamas militants on October 7th. Her remains were only recently identified. Her son, Yonatan Zaigan, spoke with the National's Adrian Arsenault yesterday.
I felt Canadians in particular, from the government to the people, really felt that they're involved and took her persona to heart, and I was moved by it.
And Silver's younger sister, Rahel, from Winnipeg, made the trip for the service as well today. A man who says he is a victim of sexual abuse by Graham James is calling on the St. James Assiniboia School Division to be more proactive about protecting children. Greg Gilhooly's request to meet with officials comes on the heels of a new lawsuit. Another man is suing James and the school division. He claims officials knew he had been abused by Graham James, who was his substitute teacher. Gilhooly says he was also assaulted by James on school property. Instead of suing, he contacted the division a decade ago to share his story so school officials could learn from his experience.
It's too easy for people involved in institutions just to pass things along to lawyers. It's fundamentally wrong. You take advice from your lawyer, but that's never an excuse not to do the right thing.
And you'll recall Graham James was convicted of sexually abusing hockey players, including Theron Fleury and Sheldon Kennedy, while he coached in the Western Hockey League in the 1980s. The family of a man found dead in Steinbach this spring say the city made them take down a memorial for him. Loved ones of Ryan Maynard set up a cross and mementos at the site where he was found off Hespler Street in April. But they say the city of Steinbach made them take down the makeshift memorial late last month. Alison Zapperzan was close with Maynard. She was the partner of his cousin.
It's a memorial thing. So if they think that we're not still going to go there and put a whole bunch of flowers and crosses at the site where he was found deceased, they've got a whole new thing coming to them.
A Steinbach city spokesperson says the city does not allow private structures on municipal property. They say they allowed the memorial for a period of time out of compassion for the family, but asked them to remove it by the end of October. Family members of Austin Laughlin Bercier are in shock and grief after learning he died fighting in the war in Ukraine. The 25-year-old from a Pasquia Cree Nation went to Ukraine last fall to help in the war against Russia. His family learned of his death earlier this week. Marlene Ross is his aunt.
We weren't expecting that because the last text message that he gave his mom was that everything is okay there. And then 2 days later, she gets a different call saying that he was not okay.
Ross says no funeral arrangements have been made because his remains have yet to be recovered. She asks for prayers his body can be recovered so he can be brought home. And some business owners in Winnipeg's Exchange District are giving mixed reviews to an investment strategy for the area. The Exchange District Biz has published a strategy to increase the area's population over 20 years. John Thiessen, who owns UN Luggage on McDermott, says visioning exercises are worthwhile, but he would like to see the Biz place a similar emphasis on public safety in the Exchange.
I would love for that amount of concentration and that amount of effort be put into some of the issues that are pressing now before the neighborhood sort of slips backwards.
Brian Sharfstein, who owns Canadian Footwear on Adelaide, calls the strategy a pie-in-the-sky plan. He says safety concerns have left some of his customers and staff afraid to go to his downtown store. You can find more on all of these stories as well as news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you for the morning, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather Wells from our news department, as well as Chris Armstrong out there. Thanks to our live team. Abby Adeyemi behind the controls, Travis Peterson behind our InfoRad on YouTube controls, and Pat Kanuga doing his thing with the snow coming down.
Watching the system all morning, Marcy, it's moving through pretty quickly. Thomas just phoned from Russell. Clear skies now, so the snow is moving east. It's still over Brandon and Boissevain, Pilot Mound. Winkler is getting it, and we're getting it here in Winnipeg and the Interlake. But it's going to move through in just a few hours. But parts of southern Manitoba and the Interlake could see anywhere from 5 to 15 centimeters. We're only expecting a couple here. We're going to be hovering around 0. We're 1 right now. We're getting to a -1 by late afternoon. Blustery winds as well, gusting to 50 from the northwest this afternoon. So today, a blustery day, a yucky day. Tomorrow, 5 and sunny, 6 on Saturday, Sunday 5. So get through today and enjoy the weekend, everyone. It's once again 1 in the city with this snow.
Thanks to our hardworking team of associate producers as well as our leaders in unit, Nellie Gonzalez and Leif Larson. Thank you for listening. Tomorrow we're going to be donning our finest blues and showing our bias for the Blue Bombers in the Grey Cup. We can't often do that, but I'm not cheering for Montreal. Coming up next, it's The Current. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is on The Current next, talking about why her province wants to pull out of Canada's pension plan. Should be an interesting conversation. Stay tuned to CBC 89.3. I'm Marcy Markusa. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening.